Dun 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 dun. Oscar watch. Mackenzie, the Oscars were last week. We're a little bit behind with our coverage here, but final check-in, I guess, of award season closing. How did your Oscar watching go? And then let's start with that. Did you get through all the films?
I did. 53 of 53. I did it. I did do it. It
Were
was
there any that you just flat out didn't like?
Yes, absolutely. There were definitely some. And there were some that I went out of the theater like, what the fuck did I just waste my time on? And I will say that inevitably happens every year. There's one or two. There were definitely a couple this year. Yeah, I think it's also one of the problem too is that obviously it's nominated for a bunch of awards and you're like, am I the idiot? Like, did I not get it? So every time that
No, it's
happens
the
to me,
children who are wrong.
exactly. Every time I go home, I try to Google to validate myself. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what did I just watch? What did I miss? What do I not understand?
No.
It often does not resolve things for me, but I try. I try to see what they're talking about.
Okay. Well, you got through all the movies, so congratulations. Everyone out
Thank
there
you.
should be giving her a round of applause, unless you're at the wheel. But second question would be, after watching the Oscars themselves, I guess, what's your biggest hands down agree this was the 100% right call on this award? And then what is your hands down I completely disagree and something else should have won?
Oh, such a good question.
Thank you.
So I did pretty well this year as far as I normally do. I normally track what do I want to win on my little Oscars ballot. I do what do I want to win, what do I think is going to win, and what actually wins. And this year I kind of combined the what do I want to win and what do I think is going to win.
Yeah.
And then I did what was going to win. And so I got 15 out of 23. So I was pretty close on most of my guesses, if not all. Some of those were stubborn too, where it was like, I really don't want this to win, but I think it might, kind of thing.
So you had to go with your head instead of your heart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but one of the ones that I do not understand why it won, that I am quite a bit ragey about, and this was one of the ones I went home and Googled, you know what I mean? Did some research and was like, what did I miss? Was The Boy and the Heron, which won for Best Animated Feature Film, which is, if you're not familiar with some of the Studio Ghibli work, that's Asian anime, really, quote unquote highbrow animation films. They always have a great moral to them. They're beautifully animated. They often have gorgeous music, all these great things. And my thing with all of those is that for me, they're a solid 50-50. Sometimes I love them and sometimes I'm like, what the fuck did I just watch? And this one was a what the fuck did I just watch for me?
Yeah, I've never been a big Miyazaki. I'm not sure if Miyazaki does all the Studio Ghibli films or just some of them.
But a classic. Yeah.
But I've seen one or two and they're fine. I just didn't get big into them. But I have friends who love Miyazaki and even they were saying this is not one of their favorites.
I didn't like it. And I am even ashamed to admit this. I was falling asleep in the theater. I would, and I don't do that. I'm in there. I'm in the zone. I'm into it. It was a 6:00 show. You know what I mean? It wasn't like it was late. I just was struggling to stay engaged. And I even more so because I was like, oh God, I must have missed something. I must have dozed off and missed something. So again, I reread the plot and did all this stuff. What did I miss? No, I saw all the high points. I definitely did. I remember all the things that happened. The music was really cool, and the animation was good like it always is. But I fundamentally didn't like the story. I didn't think it packed much of a punch. I left with, I don't get the point of this. The main character, the heron, is actually kind of a heron goblin type of figure. And it's a grotesque figure that I'm like, I don't understand why this is the person leading us through this story. So yeah, that was a hard no for me. I would have definitely gone in that same category. For example, was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which, as we have talked about on the pod
I was shocked
previously,
that one didn't win. I didn't see The Boy and the Heron, but I believe the first one did win for Best Animated Picture, so I assumed the second one would, because the animation in this was even better.
I don't know if it was just a sequel thing where sequels don't win as much or what, or if the first one kind of like we said on the pod previously of it broke that ground and now we're all think it's normal. I don't know, but I still think that the animation was incredible, to your point, like, even better than the first one and really unique and all of that. So, like, I would have gone Spider-Man as my first choice, and as a
Yeah.
second choice, I would have done Elemental, which is a Pixar
Mhm.
and was really good, and it was this beautiful story, and I'm, like, crying at the end of it. I mean, as Pixar does to you. So, anyway, anything in that category practically could have won over fucking The Boy and the Heron as far as I'm concerned, including Robot Dreams, which had no dialogue at all. It was purely animation. That was a really unique one for sure. I don't know that it should have won, but it was a really unique one. So yeah, it's an interesting category this year, and I just felt like they just gave it to Studio Ghibli, which I was not about.
Yeah, yeah, maybe it's sorta like one of the but he's won before. I was gonna say maybe it's one of those legacy wins that you talk about, but
Yeah, I also think, like, again, I don't know, it's kind of like it's like a Scorsese for me, right? Like, you throw him in a category and
Mhm.
they're like, "He's gonna win," you know what I mean? And I'm just doesn't mean that that's their best work, in my opinion. But anyway. But I think my favorite one that I was so glad to see recognized, it was like a hard yes for me that they won, is actually kind of a weird one probably, which was the best sound category. And
Okay.
that's because in watching it, like, it wasn't a post-analysis, it wasn't something like, "Oh, I Googled it and read a bunch of reviews." It was in the moment, in the theater, watching The Zone of Interest and being blown away by the
Okay.
use of sound of the in this film, and it was up against some contenders. Like, I will say there's
Mhm.
some very good work in this
With an
category.
AHC at the end.
Yes,
Contenders. You
contenders.
win, so you
That's
know
how
it's real.
serious
Yeah.
that's how you know, exactly. But yeah, I just there was some real heavy competition, and I still felt like this was far and away the most interesting because it so contributed to the story in a really intentional way. And again, when you're in a theater sitting there going like, "Whoa, these
Mhm.
sounds," like that's standing out to you. I felt like that was really impactful, and I think it's very symbolic. This Zone of Interest, for those of you who don't know, is a film about the director of the camp at Auschwitz in World War II and his family who lived literally abutted to the wall of the camp, right? But you never see the inside of the camp in this film. You only see this home and this home life. And so there's a very interesting use of these stark contrasts of sounds. These like this home life sound of your normal, almost suburban noises you'd be used to hearing against a backdrop that is very intentional of things that are happening in a camp. And that's all I'll say. But it's very, very interesting, intense, and creative and intentional use of sound that I thought was really profound. So I thought that was very well deserved. Yeah.
Still on my watch list. I'm gonna get around to that one. I think it started streaming somewhere recently,
I
maybe?
think so. I think so. I don't know why I wanna say Paramount Plus, don't hold me to that, but I feel like that
Mm.
was maybe one of them. But yeah, I highly recommend it. But again, it's like it's heavy, and if you haven't watched the Oscars yet, Jonathan Glazer, who won for this, got a lot of flack for his speech, but this is he did this film about one of the most horrific genocides in world history, as we well know, and, um, he did a beautiful job of it, I think. So it was really nice to see him win for that, and well deserved, I think, again, from a technical standpoint, like, whew, wow, incredible.
I think World War II won, like, 80% of the Oscars this year. All these stories intertwined with World War II is having a great, great 2024.
Man,
Cringe.
I feel like it's we're in an unfortunate need of reminding about that. So I think
Yeah.
it's reflective of the times. I tell people all the time, probably ad nauseum, like art reflects life. It really
Mhm.
does. And people are seeing commonalities and themes that make them inspired to do this kind of work. And, I don't think it's lost on me, at least, that there are some real parallels, but some beautiful, profound work coming out of that from an artistic perspective. But overall, I think the Oscars were kind of what I expected them to be. The best picture category was a really hard category this year. I think there were some really great showings, but like we said on our Oppenheimer versus Barbie, like back to back weeks or whatever we did, Oppenheimer is just like a masterclass in filmmaking.
Yeah.
So I'm just really not surprised that it won as much as it did. I mean, it won, 7 things, I think. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, all that to say, another year with no Oscars for Predator, any of the Predators, and that's where I'll weigh in. I didn't actually watch the Oscars, but that's my big takeaway after reading the wrap-up, so
No Predator wins. Got it. If you could pick something that you did see over the last year to be nominated, win an Oscar for something. I know I'm throwing you a curveball here,
yeah.
but like what would be something that you did see that you were just like, oh, this was completely overlooked. This was so great.
Predator 2, I watched it a couple weeks ago. Best director. That's my answer.
Cut print, moving on. All right. Welcome back to We Drink and We Watch Things. I'm Mackenzie.
And I'm Super Bowl winner Troy Aikman, here to talk about a football movie with you. That's what we need, some guest stars, some Dallas Cowboys up in here.
Man, why didn't we think of that? Why didn't we think of a guest star?
Well, I'm Lemar, sorry.
I was gonna say, way to fuck us up here already. We're 2 seconds in and we're already doing it wrong. Well,
you pushed the recording time back by an hour, and that gave me time to finish the drink that I had made for the first planned session. So I'm in a great mood.
It's my fault. I got it. I mean, I'm here for it, and it's gonna make for a spicy up. Let's go. All right, well, folks, we are continuing our March Madness with another light one. If y'all don't recall, or maybe this is the first time you're tuning in a hot minute, we have been doing a lot of heavy shit. So this week's entry is The Replacements, a football flick, not to be confused with a flea flicker. And
I thought you were going to say not to be confused with the band, The Replacements, because it was very strange Googling stuff for research on this, because I had to always specify Replacements movie, not Replacements band.
Oh, no. I was definitely thinking in football terms, because I love football, which I think is going to be clear as I watch this movie. But also, I know this movie being the choice might be another, contentious choice. But again, I think it's just it's just a fun, lighthearted flick. There are a lot of great football movies for sure, but I thought this was a fun one.
It's a solid choice. And I was looking around online and I saw that like this consistently, if you Google, best football movies, typically this ends up in the top 10 on most people's. I know there's multiple sources out there, but it seems like most people's list, this ends up at number 9, number 10, maybe number 14 or so, but it's never kept completely off. And that actually surprised me. But then when I think about how many legitimately great football movies are there, there's not that many. And this isn't perfect by any means. We're going to talk about that. But it is fun. Like you said, lighthearted, and it's just an enjoyable watch with maybe some stuff that hasn't aged so well, which we'll talk about.
Oh my God,
it's a fun film.
Yeah. We will talk about that. Okay, well, I already have comments because I want to hear what our honorable mentions would be. But before we get into that, what are you drinking today?
So I basically took the recipe for a frozen strawberry daiquiri, but I added in some mango puree and a little bit of lime juice. And I'm going to call this the Falco for our boy Shane Falco, because he's just so mellow. Like, obviously he's played by Keanu Reeves, but he's living on his boat and he just takes everything in stride, whether that's because he really is that mellow or it's just because Keanu Reeves is playing him. Either way, he just seems like the type of dude that would enjoy a good daiquiri. So that's what I'm going with here.
Oh my God, I love it so much. Also because you guys can't see it, but it's like this beautiful red color that kind of matches the Washington
like
Sentinels in the film. Yeah, so I love it. You did great.
What about you? What you drinking?
Well, I went the Annabelle route of it all, which feels kind of appropriate. So Annabelle's the cheerleader, and the poor girl busts out wine at one point in this movie and sits alone as a sad panda in her bar waiting for this kid to show up for a date. So I don't know, out of solidarity, I was like, I think I'm just going to have a glass of wine with our girl who it just sat there. I hope she drank it. So I'm drinking it for her, if not.
Now, Mackenzie, would you say you don't date football players? Because your girl, Annabelle, who's drinking the wine, we needed to know that about her. She does not. I don't know why every movie in like the 90s and aughts was like, I don't date, insert sport here, player from the one female character in the movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because boundaries. That's why.
Yeah. They're important in the workplace. Yeah, you're right.
But that being said, she immediately compromises her boundaries, but that's fine. No, was not my vibe for sure, for sure. But you know what? I also didn't date football players, and I dated football players. You know what I mean? So I
Okay.
pulled an Annabelle as
You
well.
made
So
exceptions.
right.
And also, she's full of shit because that same actress who dates a football player, and this, I know we haven't gotten into the cast yet. I'm getting ahead of myself, but she would go on to be in the Friday Night Lights television series in which she dates an underage football player as a grown ass woman. We don't need to get into the specifics of that. It's dramatic
Wow.
television, but yes, she has a thing for football players, so she's lying.
Clearly lied. Also, sidebar, I've never seen Friday Night Lights, which will shock most people.
We have to. You're
It is
talking
on
about
my
the
list.
TV show
I'm
or the
talking about
movie. You haven't seen
cor
either?
I haven't seen either. I haven't seen
Okay.
either, which,
Yeah.
like, it's just, like, I can't remember. I feel like Friday Night Lights wasn't on, maybe it was on cable? I don't know. When it was out, it was, like, not my shtick for
Mhm.
whatever reason, and then it's just been on the list to go back and watch ever since, and I just, like, haven't done it, but I want to. I've heard
You need
great
to
things.
you'll come over, me, you, and Janelle will do because we wanna do a rewatch anyway, and it's all filmed around here in Austin and Round Rock, all the
Yeah,
nearby, and you started this podcast by saying you love football, so
I
I feel
do.
like you gotta do Friday Night Lights, at least
I
the television
do.
series.
I do. That's why I feel like I'm kinda, yeah, I feel like people would be surprised that I haven't seen it. So, yes, I'm down for a rewatch. We'll put it on the list for sure. Maybe
Awesome.
we drunk rewatch as bonus eps of the pod. I'm just
Hell
saying.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, all that to say, we do love football here on the pod, and I'm super excited to talk about this one. I do wanna talk quickly before we dig into it. Honorable mentions, like I said, I think there are so many good football movies,
Mhm.
and I'm curious what you think. A couple that came up for me today, just again riffing. Any Given Sunday, I love.
Mhm.
Rudy, I love, which of
Yeah.
course, like heartstrings. Um, Remember the Titans is a great one.
Mhm.
There are more. Anyway, what are some that are top of mind for you that you love?
Remember the Titans is up there. That might be my favorite. I think if I had to
Mhm.
pick one good football movie to sit down and watch like a drama, I
Mhm.
think I would go with Remember the Titans. But honestly, Mackenzie, I'm gonna tell you, I really enjoy The Waterboy. I know you hate Adam Sandler, and we promised the people last week we would touch on this. So, why do you hate Fun, Mackenzie?
I have never been attacked in what I think is a more accurate and offensive way. Um, yeah, I don't. Sometimes I don't love fun, and in my movies, that's maybe one of the places. But Adam Sandler in general, I'll have my quick rant here. I loved a Billy Madison.
Okay,
I watched, a mini Adam Sandler when I was younger and thought like, "Oh, this is funny or silly," or what have you, and on a first watch, I liked certain things, but almost none of it held up for me, like, even
okay.
even in my later teens, you know what I mean? Like, we're not talking like, oh, 12 and 30, right? We're talking, like, later teens.
You were
I
ahead of the Adam Sandler curve where all of us eventually kinda got sick of him, but still can sort of rose-tinted glasses watch the stuff. You were just like, "No, I'm already tired of this humor."
I'm just already tired of it, for sure. Yeah.
Fair.
I think also a contributing factor is that my sister, when we were kids, was obsessed with Adam Sandler. So, like,
Yeah.
she would play his stand-up, like, his recordings of his stand-up, which were really just silly skits, and then also, like, watch The Waterboy excessively. Like, we watched The Waterboy an alarming number of times. So even though I don't particularly want to talk about it and rewatch it, I probably have it fucking memorized. Like, I've seen it so many times. So, yeah, he's just not my favorite, but he's done a couple dramatic roles that I liked, that I thought were well done. But yeah,
Uncut
not my
Gems.
favorite. I actually didn't love that. I thought he performed well, but that movie stressed me the fuck out. I was, like, at 1,000 the whole time,
Well,
but,
which Mackenzie, you don't like fun, you don't like being stressed. I'm just what's your sister's name? Does she wanna do a podcast?
she should do a podcast. Avery, come in, relieve me. Uh,
Kidding,
no,
kidding.
I loved Reign Over Me. He was great. And he did an incredible job on that one, I thought. And I actually really I liked Big Daddy when it came out.
Mhm.
I did like Billy Madison, and some of these are very quotable. These are quotable and fun. Like, I will spit the quotes out all day long, but it's not
I
necessarily
guess I
something I want to
forgive
go
you because
rewatch.
it does sound like some of it was just the amount of repetition of being forced to watch a movie you didn't particularly wanna watch. I guess I can
Mhm.
relate to that because look at, I can say Little Mermaid is a good movie, but I hated it when
Mm,
I was a kid because my sister watched it twice a day.
that's right. You
So
were saying that.
yeah, but the thing, I think what threw me was one of the things I wanted to call out about The Replacements is just watching it. I was like, it's not perfect, and I think the IMDb. I'm not sure if you have the Metacritic, but it's
I
like a
do.
6.5 or something on IMDb.
6.6. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I would put it at. Is just it's a very fun film, but it's not
Hmm.
perfect. But my thought while watching it was, this is such a good example of that tried and true formula of, let's just take a bunch of zany characters, almost like stereotypes, put them in a room, like in some kind of scene or on a team or whatever it might be, and like see what works. And it's just the
Yeah.
cast goes all in on it, and that's what makes for a good movie. But that's with the Waterboy, I was shocked because this movie to me feels like there's 8 Waterboys running around the field, like a bunch of zany characters, but Waterboy is just really one guy going crazy. So yeah,
That's a great point. That's a great point. I mean, maybe it really is an Adam Sandler thing for me. Who knows? But because I
maybe.
do think this is kind of fun. Like I do think this movie is kind of fun. And one of the reviews I read, for example, was like, if you accept it for what it is, it's a good time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's this
yeah,
silly sports movie. It's not trying to be anything that it's not. It's trying to be cheesy. It's trying to be an homage to a bunch of different sports films. And I think that if you again just let that happen and resonate, again, it's a good time. It's a fun time.
yeah.
So maybe
I
maybe
can
this was just the sweet spot.
Yeah, I can tell you all right now that this is gonna end up probably, I didn't go back and listen to it, but wherever Bring It On ended up, this is the same class of movie. It is not perfect, definitely hasn't aged well in some capacities, but it's still fun.
Yeah, it is. That is such a good comparison, and it's so funny you have that comparison because I have a comparison later in the film to bring it on. Um, but before we get into the weeds with all that, so like we said, the IMDb rating was 6.6 out of 10. The Rotten Tomatoes, for example, was like 41% for critics, 66% for audiences.
That
So that's
tracks,
still
yeah.
that tracks exactly, right? It's not like a critical acclaim, but the audiences had a good time. So that all makes sense. And then important to note, I think, this came out in 2000. So just want that, just everybody, that was 24 years ago. I know it hurts. I know it hurts to hear. It hurt me when I read it. But it's 24 years old. So some of this stuff doesn't age great. That's all I'm gonna say.
Are you gonna quote any of it directly to give examples, or we're not gonna talk about it?
I I mean, I guess I could.
I'm just
I don't know that I want to. I don't think
And
I
that
want.
was the last episode of We Drink and We Watch Things, the
Exactly.
podcast.
I was gonna say, I don't think I want recorded audio out there in the world of me saying some of these things, but, that's neither here nor there.
I had to rewind twice and be like, "Did they just say what I think they said?" Because it's a little, muffled, and yeah,
If you're
it's
thinking of
mm,
Chinaman,
mm,
then you would be
mhm,
correct.
mhm, yeah.
Oh my god, yes. Okay. So, all that to say, some of this doesn't age well, but this was, directed by Howard Deutsch. I assume you say Deutsch. I don't know if that's
I would
exactly how
say Deutsch, yeah.
I would say Deutsch.
I
And
would say
he
Deutsch. Let's just keep
Deutsch?
saying it back and forth.
Say
Oh,
Deutsch.
this is gonna be an episode, okay.
This is again, we are feeling spicy today, guys. Hope you don't mind. But he did Pretty in Pink, Some Kind of Wonderful, Grumpy
You know
Old
what?
Men.
I was gonna say, on the topic of grumpier old men, I was looking at, Pretty in Pink was the one that stood out to me. He's
Sure.
done so many sequels to movies he didn't direct. So he
Right.
did
He's the
Grumpier
sequel
Old Men,
director.
he did The Whole 10 Yards, he
Yes.
did The Odd Couple 2. So yeah,
Mhm.
I think the sequel director, if they ever give him like a Fablemans or like a story about his life, that's what it
That's
should be
his
called, Mackenzie, the sequel director.
the sequel director,
Uh,
yes. Oh, or maybe it's just called The Sequel.
the
Anyway.
the movie.
See,
Ooh,
yes, we did it. We did it. All
we got
right.
there.
Howard Deutsch is the sequel. So he is. I actually felt like it made so much sense once I looked at his credits. Actually,
Mhm.
like the vibe of the film and all of that. I was
Yeah.
like, yes, this is peak like 80s wholesome. He's also
Yeah.
done a bunch of TV as well. But it was just, yeah, it made a lot of sense to me. Also, fun fact, father of Zoe Deutsch. If anybody likes Zoe Deutsch, she's
Zoe
been
Deutsch Chanel, the one from, like, New Girl?
radically different
What
Zoe,
she
but
I just
okay.
mispronounced, I was like, "Oh, okay." That's
You
interesting.
just want it to be her, is what it is.
That
But no, different Zoe. She's just been in a lot of, like, I don't know, Netflixy things lately. I feel like she's coming up
okay.
and, a lot of people might know her name. But anyway, that's her dad.
Hmm.
And, the writer of this one, Vince McEwen. I don't know much about
I
Vince.
didn't
You
write any notes by his name because nothing else. I feel like I think remember going to his IMDb page and making sure he was still alive because it seemed like he was only in the industry for like 8 years or so, and then he just stopped. So
he
I
was in a
don't know if he just gave up writing for film. He's still alive, so good news, everybody. But he just isn't in
wow.
the industry anymore, from what I
Do you
can
know what
tell.
it was?
Mm.
He was a replacement.
Oh, wow, that's going in
Man.
the Hall of Fame. That's a good clip.
That was good. That was good, I know. I'm very proud. All right. But major cast and crew here is the key. We've got some awesome cast here for
Yeah,
such a, I don't know, what we would maybe argue is a B movie, like some pretty great players. Keanu Reeves, obviously, to start, who's been in, I don't know, fucking everything and is a gem of a human also. Let's talk about that. And he's, Mr. Falco. What is it? Footsteps. Footsteps Falco.
yeah.
I love
Former Ohio State quarterback, same as his character in Point Break. So are they the same
I
person?
know.
I don't
Isn't
know.
that so funny? I'm so
Yeah.
glad you caught that. I was like, have the people seen Point Break? Because same diff. But I love that. He does such a great job in this. And it's one of those just like fun outings for him. As
Yeah.
we know him from, obviously The Matrix and now
Mhm.
John Wick as his action guy resurgence or what have you. But I think people forget about Keanu Reeves that he's done quite the range of films, like
Yeah. He goes in and out
rom-coms,
of yeah,
action,
rom-coms,
drama,
straight
all the
comedy,
stuff.
all that. Yep.
Yeah, so this is kind of like a fun outing for him, and fun fact, if you didn't know, this fucker was offered a Baltimore Ravens audition as a result of this movie, which is
Like he
bananas.
must be that's how good of an actor it is, it turns out. He actually got a
Yeah,
football tryout because of this.
yeah, 100%, except his throws are not always his throws, you can tell because 'cause they're like a
Mm, yeah.
right-handed throw, but he overall does a really good job. He actually did throw several of these throws, but there are some that you're like, "That's definitely a right-handed quarterback," but okay. But anyway, so he's great. We love Keanu Reeves. And then Gene Hackman, also another classic. Love
Mhm.
him. And he's kind of an homage to the kind of the classic football coaches. There's lots of famous older coaches that people may know, like the old Alabama coach whose name escapes me at this moment, of course, but a bunch of folks that he kind
Like
of is
Nick
an homage
Saban?
to. No, 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 not Nick Saban.
Like an
Predating
old
him, like
okay. So I was
older,
like,
like
he's not that. I
50s.
mean, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah, no, like 50s-ish, and I know his name. I'm gonna regret it later. But anyway, he's like an homage to this type of coach and this era of coach,
Mhm.
and this kinda what I call the for love of the game coach, right? And he does a great job of it. I love him. I think he's awesome in this.
Yeah, I agree. Gene Hackman's one of those strange actors where I can't, off the top of my head, name a bunch of his films, but I know I've seen him in probably 20 motion pictures over the years. Like, do you have a favorite Gene Hackman role?
I don't know. Oof. Favorite is hard. One of the first ones that pops into my head weirdly is Enemy of the State. Do you remember Enemy of the State? Will
Yes,
Smith?
with Will Smith, right? Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
He's one of those
yeah.
weird things where he's clearly a leading man, but in my head, I think of him as more of a character actor. It's very strange.
Well, he's done both. So, like, he
Yeah.
did in, like, I would say French Connection, it's like a lead, but a character-y vibe. He did, Mississippi Burning is another famous one that I deeply regret forgetting just then. Runaway Jury is another deep cut of his that I really like. He plays an attorney in that one who's, like, very cutthroat. He actually has a similar it's like if this coach was a bad guy and a lawyer.
Mm.
That's who he is in Runaway Jury. Anyway, and then he did a Wes Anderson movie. He did,
Royal Tenenbaums.
yes,
Yes.
Royal
Okay.
Tenenbaums. Yes, yes. Anyway, he has range as well. He does
Mhm.
incredible things, and yeah, we love Gene Hackman. So excited to see him here. And then we have kind of like a hot mix of characters. Brooke Langton is the head cheerleader who plays Annabelle. We've got a mix of football team, players who are Orlando Jones, Faison Love, Reese Ifans, I'm not sure. John Favreau, obviously
Jon
incredible.
Favreau, on rewatch is my favorite part of this movie.
He's
Again,
ridiculous.
this is such I mean, he's basically playing the water boy, right? Like, he's basically Adam Sandler, just, like,
Yeah.
angry and, like, hitting thing, like, not
Yes.
as lovable, but, like,
More angry, yeah.
his
Yeah.
whole when he takes Shane for the second time in practice, and he points to his red shirt, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, red shirt. This
Red
is
shirt.
confusing." Like,
This is confusing, am I right?
just
And I love he's like,
yeah.
"Red shirt means stop. Means stop." He's like, "Okay." Yeah. It's
I
ugh.
also sorry, one more call out. When the first game that they play, when he comes out the tunnel and accidentally levels the cheerleaders, he hits the cheerleaders and then gets up and runs toward the television cameras and pulls the Heisman pose. That,
I
again,
know.
one of my most, like, I forgot about it. I laughed out loud. It was great.
I actually it's so funny you say that. I rewound that part back when I rewatched it recently because I was like, "Wait, what just happened?" And because he, like, ends up in a very strange position, and then, yeah, all of a sudden
Yeah.
he's posing, and you're like, "Wait, give me a second here." But, yes, it's hilarious. He does such a great job. And it's, obviously, if you know all the things that John has gone on to do, it's a funny role for him, for sure. So then we also have Jack Warden, who plays the owner of the team, and I have things to say about him. We'll talk in a minute.
Okay.
But this was
I'm
his last
intrigued.
film. It was
Yeah,
his
his very
last
last film credit, yep.
his very last film credit, which is ironic because he said that he's dying in the movie. So, oof.
Mhm.
Anyway, art reflecting life. Am I right? Am I right? And then we have Art LaFleur, who I think is like you recognize him on sight, but you can't place him kind of actor. That was him for me.
For me too, I was like, "Where do I know him from?" And all
Yeah.
the people who wanted us to do The Sandlot last week, he
Mhm,
plays
mhm.
Babe Ruth in The Sandlot, the assistant
Yes,
coach
he
in this, and I was like, "Oh,
does.
shit, that's right." So, there you go. You got your little Sandlot fix until we actually do the actual
You got your
movie.
Sandlot
Yeah.
teaser. You're
Yes.
welcome.
You got your grain
No.
of sand, if you
Ye
will. But the only other one that I wanted to call out was, I think it's David Denman or Denneman, and this was his first film role, and he would go on to be on The Office, and he played Roy. So, Office heads out there, this is his first movie role.
I love The Office, but I need an Office rewatch. That's awesome. Great call
We
out.
all need an Office rewatch, let's be
I think
honest here.
so. I think so. Okay, the last two I wanna call out, there are a bunch, by the way, guys, like, there are a bunch of great little characters in here, and I may have missed some, but the last two that I think need an honorable mention are John Madden and Pat Summerall,
Which is
who are
crazy that they got them for this.
they got them for this, and, like, we see that more now, I think, where they get real people to do
Yeah.
things, like Wolf Blitzer has been in a bunch of movies and been a real CNN commentator and things like that, but it's back then, I feel like that wasn't that common, maybe I'm just misremembering because I was younger, I don't know, it didn't seem like
I
that
think
happened
it
that
was
often.
I think it was rare. I'm
Yeah.
reminded of I think it was the first Creed movie where they got two of my favorites, Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon, who do the ESPN show Pardon the Interruption, and they've
Mm.
both been doing that shit for, like, 30 years, but they got them in Creed, and I don't think you get that if you didn't have John Madden and Pat Summerall in this, and it gives the movie, like, more of a legitimacy.
Yeah, it brings some authenticity to their roles, to the script, it feels like. It doesn't feel forced, like, they're not those like, when Nick Saban guest starred on The Blind Side, another great football movie, by the way,
Mhm.
he was such an actor, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't mean it in a bad way, like, he's a coach trying to say a few lines, but you
Mhm.
could feel that it felt fake a little bit, and he did
Yeah.
his best, but you were just like, "Ugh, he's such a coach." But this didn't feel like they were acting, it really did feel like they're calling a game, so that was a nice throwback for me, especially, like, rest in peace, John Madden. We haven't gotten to hear him call a game in a minute, so that was a fun experience for me for a hot minute there, so that was cool.
Yeah. The only other one that I wanna call out, and this sort of ties into one of the first things that I wanted to say about the plot itself, is Archie Harris, who plays Wilson Carr, who's sort of the religious pastor, priest
Mhm,
character in
mhm,
this.
mhm.
So the reason I wanna shout him out is he had actually played in the NFL as a replacement player in 1987, which is the scenario that this entire movie plot is based on. So he
Mm.
played as a replacement. He would actually go on to lose in the Super Bowl to the team that this is loosely based around. I thought that was pretty interesting that they cast a ex-football player replacement to be in a movie called The Replacements, about replacements. Go figure.
That is cool. Nice segue into our plot summary, by the way, which
There you go.
is ready for it, guys?
You
Hang
should
on,
tell
hang
them
on, let
where
me
you
take
got this plot summary first. Where'd you get this from?
Okay, so I wanted to give you guys a plot summary, so I gave it a Goog, and I went to the IMDb's, and I was like, "They have good, succinct plot summaries," and boy, do they ever, because this one is, during a pro football strike, the owners hire substitute players.
And scene.
End scene. Elfine. That's it. That's all you get. So I was a little surprised by how succinct this one was, but really it does get to the heart of it. So there's that, I guess. But anyway, yeah, he's a replacement player. They are all replacement players. And this movie, the first thing that stood out to me, just moving right into the plot, so 2000s. Like,
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
again, it came out in 2000, and we're in the first 30 seconds, and the first thing I said out loud was, "This is so 2000s."
You
The
got
first
Lit
song,
Ziploc
yes,
bag playing. Yeah.
Ziploc by Lit, the whole look of it. Like, the song, by the way, is really juxtaposed against him, like, rolling up on his boat in this very chill situation, and you're like, this song,
Yeah.
both the lyrics kind of fit, but the sound of it doesn't fit, and
Right.
anyway, it's very, like, 10 Things I Hate About You opening, like, very 2000s. It was hilarious, but I also love immediately Shane Falco's on his houseboat. He's doing his, whatever thing after he hasn't played in a while. You don't know all the background yet, but what immediately happens is he's scraping barnacles off of a boat because, of course, he is.
As you do when you own a
As
boat. Yeah.
as you do, and,
I
that's his
assume.
side. Well, that's his side gig. This is
One
how he
day.
makes money now is he just barnacles boats, I should say. And he finds there's we have to dig into this. He finds his own trophy at the bottom of the water, and he is surprised, by the way, by finding said trophy that says All-American Shane Falco, and he's like, "Wait, what the fuck is that?" And he
Well,
goes and
maybe it was like a drunken stupor and he got
I
angry at his missing
100%
fruit
believe
over
that.
the yeah.
I 100% believe that, but you live on a houseboat, so, like, it surprises you that it's in the water? I don't know why, and also, you clearly go down there to debarnacle boats on the reg. This is
Mhm.
your first experience. I don't know, maybe this happened last night, who knows, but
Maybe.
he definitely has discovered his drunken rage at his own trophy, but it's so wholesome because he immediately grabs it and, like, fakes this whole
Does a
play.
whole play, doesn't drown somehow, he's down there for like 2.5 minutes, but Shane Falco can hold his breath a long time, ladies. I don't know what that
I he
means, but it sounded cool at
Something
first.
something good, I think. Yeah, yeah. But it was so adorable. I don't know why. It was just that whole little scene of him discovering that and finding it and having a little role play with himself. I thought it was super cute.
Yeah, sets the tone for his character, like I said, a very mellow, like, lighthearted dude, and yeah, he's down there having fun, goofing off, showing off for nobody in particular. That's Shane Falco in a nutshell.
Yeah, feels right. But, the whole crux of the matter is just to give a little bit deeper dive on the plot is, these rich, spoiled, not for love of the game players, as I would probably say, are, trying to renegotiate their contracts. Again, to Lamar's point, this is based loosely, very loosely, but it is based loosely on the 1987 NFLPA strike that did
Mhm.
happen, and they're just fighting for some more money, right? And so the first thing that happens at the top is you see this conversation from the Washington Sentinel ownership, which is potentially the Washington Redskins, and you see them figuring out, "Hey, we have to be able to continue the season somehow. How
Mhm.
are we going to continue the season? We need new players and trying to bring in a replacement team, replacement coach, all the things. And Shane Falco is obviously brought on as our first prospect, the quarterback.
Yeah, you can't win the game without the quarterback,
Mm,
and I thought it was interesting how much this has changed over time. It's fairly accurate, as you said, but I feel like at this point, everybody knows that football players, yeah, they're playing for love of the game, but they wouldn't do it if they weren't getting paid. I feel like it's
it's a
so
very, to their credit, it's a high risk game. It does
yeah, and we've seen that we're more familiar, I think, with that now of the
right,
the
right.
consequences of playing football. Yeah. But even with that, I wanted to point out that I thought it was funny watching this inflation with Martell says, $5 million might sound like a lot of money, but it's not. So he is apparently, we hear later, the best quarterback in the league, and he's making $5 million a year. Currently, the worst starting quarterback in the NFL is making $5 million a year. The not best, but the highest paid quarterback this coming year is Joe Burrow on the Cincinnati Bengals. He's making $55 million. So again, inflation is a thing, y'all.
Inflation is a thing. The point is about these players, these wealthy, whatever, affluent, successful players, is like they have quote unquote lost sight of what is important. That's the whole shtick from Jack Warden's character who plays the owner, where he's like, these spoiled players, these spoiled brats who just don't want to, they're being, what does he say? He says something like, does he call them? I want to say bitches, but I think it's probably something worse. But anyway, he's making fun of how
Mm,
wimpy they are and whiny they are and all these things. And that they just don't want to go out there and just play football. And
yeah, they also go ahead.
my immediate reaction to that is like, bitch, you're in it for the money too. Like, I
Yeah.
don't, you're an NFL owner. You're not here. This is not a nonprofit. Like
No.
like, let's cut
You're getting your
bullshit.
tax breaks from the state. We know how this works, but
Yeah.
I was going to say that the way that they show us that Martell doesn't love the game or whatever, or isn't competitive, is him sliding to avoid a tackle. That's like the first we see of him, and the coach is like criticizing him, or the owner's criticizing him. But nowadays, that's what quarterbacks are supposed to do to avoid injury and prolong their careers. So it's crazy to, again, 24 years, what a difference it makes.
Well, and I think it's something too back then that it was like you just show that grit, that extra grit, and
Yeah.
they just definitely thought he was a wimp. Which, don't get me wrong, in all these other ways, he demonstrates throughout the film how much he sucks. So no argument there. But yeah, not for that reason, not because he's protecting his head, God forbid.
Yeah. So then we jump into sort of all of the different cast of characters, as you said. Falco's sort of their first get of wanting a quarterback who can not just a quarterback, but a leader for the team. And then we get this insane cast of characters that we sort of mentioned before. And I like the little cutaways of showing what they're doing in their day jobs before they get. Again, this movie just does that very well. It's like there's not, for it being 2 hours long, there's not a lot of downtime. There's not a lot of dragging scenes. It's just beat to beat to beat to beat.
Yeah, you almost notice it more when you on a rewatch, I think, where especially where you're like we have before our pods, we're taking notes, we're trying to pay attention. I feel like I'm paying
Yeah.
closer attention than when I'm just watching something casually. And I was like, damn, this moves fast. Like I remember thinking that like this is a hustle. But I love the intro into, Clifford's background, and he's running after the robber of the convenience store, and he's just like speeding past him casual. It's like, give me that Twinkie back, and he can't catch, not only can he not catch the Twinkie, he steps on it, and so you're like, ooh, this is gonna make for a great receiver. Let's go.
Yeah.
And then the leg who has this
great nickname. Great nickname.
Great nickname. What a great nickname. And then Falco, where they're like footsteps Falco. Weirdly, I've seen this movie a handful of times, and I never registered his nickname until this time. But I don't feel like correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like I don't notice a lot of homage to the actual nickname throughout. Like,
No, I don't know why they call him that. I mean, my guess would be the fact that they call out that he scrambles well later on, because when Martell does eventually come back to the team for like half a game, his players give him shit because he just gets sacked. And they're like, try scrambling a little bit. So that would be my thought, was maybe Shane's just really good at eluding tackles and running around. I don't know.
Yeah, I assume so. Got to be something like that. They don't spend a lot of time on it, but it's a cute nickname. Nice alliteration. We'll take it.
I like that that's what you took away. It's like, here's the football reason from Lemar, and then Mackenzie thinks it's cute. So
okay, first of all, rude. I fucking love football, and I can throw my football references with the best of them, but I didn't think it made sense in context, actually. Anyway, but I am also an English nerd who will take an alliteration all day, every day. So here we go. But what I also felt for Falco, was, he has this one game. He has this Sugar Bowl game that he is famous for, but not in the way you want to be, right? He's infamous for losing by 45 points. Everyone who gets the opportunity to points this out to him throughout the film. and they tell him everything that's wrong with it. And then he has this interaction with Jimmy McGinty, who is Gene Hackman's character, who's going to come in as the new coach and is trying to recruit everyone. And Falco's the least interested, weirdly enough.
Right.
And he's trying to convince him, and he has this whole speech and he tells him, all these spiels. And this is one of my complaints that doesn't hold up to this day, is talking about the game and how rough it is on your body. And Falco says back to him, well, like, I have 3 concussions to prove it, that was a brutal game.
Mhm.
And Gene Hackman says that's why girls don't play the game. And I have in my notes in all caps, ew, ew. That is some bullshit. I know some bad bitches. I am not the person. We've talked about my accent in the past. I'm not going to go out there and play football, although I'm pretty good at a football toss. I'm not going to go play a high contact sport. But there are some strong, badass women that I know who could go out there and have not only a great time, but crush some shit if they were given the opportunity to play football. So I just don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. We don't play football because it's not widely accepted. Same thing as baseball with League of Their Own, whatever. It's just not something that's, given. Women are given that opportunity. It's not because they're not capable, and it's not because they're not willing to take a hit and get a concussion. Fuck you very much, Jimmy McGinty. Okay.
I
I'm
mean,
off my
we had
soapbox.
so my high school had a female football player, just one, but we did have
Yes.
a female on the football team. She wasn't like I know a lot of high schools tend to have female kickers and things like that, but she played defense. She was out there taking
Mhm.
hits, giving hits, and whatnot. All that to say that there are girls out there that love to play football and can play football.
And also, I think, like, there's a difference too between, like, I'll play a flag football game all day long, but if you want a full blown, tackle each other, no argument. Like, there's not going to be every single woman that's into that, but there are a lot of women who are and are capable and all the things. So I will say
And
that was one that didn't land for me, but it's still, I get the point. I get what he's saying.
I thought you were going to be mad about the fact that he said he got 3 concussions in one game, but they're asking him to come back and play again. Not, but I'm
I am
equally mad
also
about the women thing. But I was like, oh shit, I forgot about that line.
I am also concerned about that. You're right. You're right. It's kind of like, and they actually say something later where she comes to the houseboat to talk to him, and she's like asking him how he's doing after the bar fight / game
Hmm.
where he took a beating. And he's like, it's all kind of running together into one big beating. And I'm like, you okay, Falco? You okay? You doing all right? It feels like maybe not. It feels like you are currently concussed.
Maybe the writer had some deep philosophical message he was trying to give us about safety in athletics, and we just weren't able to read between the lines in the year 2000.
Yeah, maybe he really had it was the foreshadowing for us where he's like, "You're all gonna get here. I'm already here, but you're all gonna get here."
There's also that line of Martell's that was a big takeaway, and I'm sure this was said before this movie, but I love that line of "You're not even a has-been, you're a never was." That's a quality insult right there to somebody who's in athletics or like a celebrity or actor, whatever it might be, you know?
That's a Mighty Ducks reference, my friend.
Really? The first
Yeah.
one?
Yeah. That's
Oh,
like a
because of
classic.
Bombay?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a classic, it's a classic, but there are several in here like that are like homages to other quotes, and that is one of them. But yeah, I do like that one. I mean, I hate him, obviously, but I do like that one. It's pretty clever. Another quote that I like while we're on quotes is from Jimmy McGinty. I just roasted him a minute ago, so I feel like I
Was gonna
need to
say, is it
throw
something about who else can't play football?
no, no, I'm gonna throw him a bone. I'm gonna throw him a bone. This is a fun one. He says, you know what separates the winners and the losers, kid? And it's funny because Falco comes back and he's like, the score,
Yeah,
obviously.
facts.
Uh, but
He ain't
it's that
wrong.
like it's that which is number one accurate, okay? But number two is just funny. He comes back with he's like, no, man, like it's the going back and trying again. It's the like
Mhm.
not getting hit and not getting back up, right? It's the getting hit, it didn't go right well, and you get back up and you try again. But I like that whole interaction with them because it's very indicative of both of their characters. Again, if you accept this movie for what it is, Gene Hackman is like the cheesy coach who gives you all the one-liners and, it gets
Yeah.
waxes philosophical about how the game impacts your life and all that. And it's just this is the beginning of that for them and their relationship, and it's kind of cute.
Yeah, yeah. I like a lot of their interactions I found throughout rewatching it of it it has more heart than I think I gave it credit for. I always knew it was a
Mhm.
fun, goofy, silly film, but there
Mhm.
are some good little nuggets here of inspiration. I agree with that.
Yeah. But you know what's not great? Not great nuggets. There's a lot of great, like, not great bullying that's happening, which I think is part of what you were alluding to at the top of, like, the way they make fun of each other is so inappropriate and so insensitive, and, like, this is when they haven't bonded as a team yet, of course, they're, like, all clashing and they don't get each other yet and all that, but they say some shit, and I was just like, "Guys, this is so inappropriate and not the, like, Chinaman reference, the, like, they're making fun of people being fat, they're, like, just all these things that they are just roasting the shit out of each other, and it's intense from minute 1 when they're all together.
Yeah, I mean, you can say what you want about it. It's the year 2000 and it's, maybe it's locker talk, quote unquote, of I'm sure that not just back then, but probably right now in, a locker room around the country, there's some dudes on the same team that are using shit like that. But there's some slurs thrown in there,
Mhm,
African
mhm.
American slurs and Welsh or Irish slurs, mixing him up with the Welsh guy and
Mhm.
whatnot. So there's a lot that doesn't age well as far as that goes, where I cringed a little bit of just but
Yeah.
if you change it, like the situation, I don't think I was as anti-bullying because I get that they're trying to establish that the team doesn't like each other and that there's
Yeah.
tension there. But I think if the script was written today, they would make it a little less low-hanging fruit. They'd actually have to try and make it a little more clever.
Yeah, yeah, it'd be less like playground insults. It would be
Right,
like, I have to
right.
try a little harder, and it's definitely the playground insults of it all, I think, for sure. And I, like, literally have in my notes, I was like, "These adult man children." Like, it was just their actual children. But you know what does age great? Mr. fucking Falco's glamour shot run onto the field, which again, I think it's just such a 1, it's glorious because obviously, but 2, you're like, this is so this movie, and like this is the shtick. Like, we're gonna have this like slow-mo, wind in the hair, run onto the field, glamour shot
Like a
moment for
fog
Mr. Reese.
machine running during the middle of
Literally
practice?
fog
Sure, why
machine.
not? Yeah. And I love that he shows up like an hour they've already all been out there sweating their
Right.
asses off, and then he's like, "Here's your leader," and he's like, "I'm late 'cause of traffic." He
The
probably would've been
traffic.
cut. He would have been cut.
And let's be honest, he's like, well, he says car trouble, and the car trouble is that they tipped his truck in the parking lot. He was
Yes,
already
so he
there.
was
He
already
could just
super
walk
late.
away. I just remember being like, "That is a bullshit excuse, sir."
Now, speaking of things that didn't age well, I wanna ask a question to you, Mackenzie. Does
Hit me.
this movie pass the Bechdel test?
No.
Are you
I'm
sure? Are you sure?
I would imagine no, but at the same time, I haven't
It
done the
is 2
test.
women having a conversation that does not have to revolve around men, right?
Yeah,
It
and
doesn't say they have to be intelligent women. The one
there's
girl who can't formulate a sentence, they're
there's
still
2 or
talking about other things.
There's 2 or 3 phases to the Bechdel test actually, but yes, that is one of the core ones. And yeah, the strippers are not they're not talking about the men, that much is true. And by strippers, I mean cheerleaders, obviously. Ugh,
Dancers. Yeah, that's a
dancers.
catch-all.
Yes, that's true, that's true. What is doesn't she say that? Like, if you have any other dancers or down at the club, send them on down.
I like when she says I love your style of dance, and she's like, "Is lap dance a style?" Like, and then when the girl I will say, like, as again, hasn't aged great, but I love when the girl says, "Oh, I forgot to tell you something," and then just has this blank stare into nowhere for 10 seconds. She's like, "Oh, she does that all the time." That's actually pretty funny.
She's like, "Yeah, she just zones out and can't process thoughts, no big deal." But they are one of the funnier parts of the film because the cheerleaders are also replacements, but what is
Mhm.
hilarious about that to me is that 1, Annabelle stays on and clearly has been the head
Right.
cheerleader regardless. Apparently, she's not striking, whatever. 2, cheerleaders make shit. She does actually say that in this film, which I was, like, waiting for to hear whether or not they were gonna address that.
Mhm.
Because, like, cheerleaders make now even now, like, with inflation, it's like $100 a game. They make shit, and,
Phew.
like, it's crazy because if you think, for example, of Dallas, like, the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders are, like, half of the famous part of the team, right? Like, people come
Mhm.
and watch these incredible dancers, admittedly, who are also cheering for these teams. And so yeah, they get paid shit. So yeah, it's no surprise to me that they're like, let me strip on the side, let me run a bar on the side, all these things. But
Mhm.
my thought out loud was, you will make more money stripping. What are you? Why are we here? You're not able to get tips off of this.
Yeah.
But they are full blown stripping on the sidelines, almost. They're dancing in provocative ways. And I just feel for them that they didn't get any tips out of it because, they were doing the work. They were doing the work.
It's very that whole thing, it's very 2000s. I think this was there women have always watched football and loved football, but this is again a film of an era where we're like, only dude, this is a dude thing.
Only
So like
dudes watch
we
football.
need to put hot chicks in this too to like, give them something else to what like it got weird for me when they were cutting to the cheerleaders during one of the games and it wasn't even there's times where the cheerleaders become a plot point where they're distracting the other team and whatever it might be, but there's one game where the other team's getting their ass or they're getting their ass kicked, but it just keeps giving these random shots of the cheerleaders dancing sexy and dude, it's just like, okay, you're kind of talking down to me and saying like, here, look at
Right.
this because this
Because this is
emotional
what's
thing
going
that's
to interest
happening isn't
you.
very fun. Yeah, so have some fun with this instead. Yeah.
Okay, but you know what we do have fun with in this is their tryouts. That's my bring it on note of the like, this is Bring It On
Yeah.
all over again.
Yeah.
Or obviously the homage from Bring It On is to this because, oh my God, the tryouts are hilarious. There's
Yes.
like this one like goth-ish kind of girl who
A
is
knife.
just, yeah, it's just angry and sad and then then flips up her skirt at the end and that's it. She's like, I did it. And then there's another one who is like trying to cheer her way through it. I thought you would love her. She was
All she
punning it
really
up.
wants is a quarter back. Yeah, I like her. It's funny you say the Bring It On thing because I actually mixed up. There was one girl in this who does a cheer, and when we were watching Bring It On, I was like, "Oh, what happened to that? Did that get cut from the movie?" And I was thinking of this movie. So mystery
Mm-hmm.
solved.
There you go. That's what it is. We have come full circle. This was meant to be. This was meant to be. But yeah, so yeah, she just wants a quarterback. But speaking of quarterbacks, Mr. Falco is hitting on the head cheerleader is the point. But what my note about this is that one, she definitely eyeballs him, right? Like the glamour shot did it for her, right? The run onto the field, she
Mhm.
was like, "Ooh, hey girl,
Yeah.
hey."
No.
Respect. I get it. His hair looked great. But she's flirting with him, whatever, no big deal. She takes him back to his houseboat, drops him off. He, in a very respectful way, asks her out, you know, and she's like, no, 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 no. Here's my boundary. I don't date football players. And he's like, not even quarterbacks, which so smooth, Keanu. And she's like, no, especially not quarterbacks, what have you. And he's such a good dude about it. I just have to call that out. We have to recognize non-problematic men when we see them, which is like he takes it in stride and is like, cool, thanks so much for the ride.
I mean,
Wish
to
you
be
the
fair,
best.
Mackenzie, it wouldn't have been much of a plot if he had just been like, well, then fuck you. It's like, oh, well, now I don't care about Falco anymore 20 minutes into the movie.
Fair, but listen, we're trying to teach men also simultaneously what is a good move, right?
I
Okay.
see. So you're saying let's recognize what
Let's
happened in this moment
recognize
as opposed
good.
to the story in the movie. I hear you.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's
that
just
makes sense.
recognize some good behavior. That's all I'm saying. This is good behavior. We appreciate this behavior. Anyway, but yes, excellent plot point. He handles this well, so she now has no reason to be upset with him or what have you. But what I will say about this that comes full circle is that she immediately breaks her own boundaries. She's like, sets this hard boundary and is like, I'm not into you. I don't date football players,
Yeah.
whatever. And I will totally call her out for immediately being like very concerned with everything Shane Falco
Mhm.
and watching him very closely and like wanting him to look at her on the field and then inviting him places or asking if he needs another ride and then rubbing, was it yams? I think it was yams on his shoulder. Remember when he's like has the
Is that
shoulder injury?
oh my god, is that what was happening
I
there?
think it's a sweet yam is what I recall her saying, like something yams are involved is what I'm saying. And she's like, "This really reduces inflammation." And she
Wait,
rubs it
is
onto his
there
shoulder.
turmeric in yams or is that just a spice? Because I know they're
I think
both
that's just a
orange.
spice. I think
Okay,
that's
because
just the
that was where
spice.
my thought went. Because I take turmeric for
Mm.
inflammation in my knee. So I thought, oh, maybe they're both orange. Maybe it is for
Maybe they're
inflammation.
both orange because they're both anti-inflammatory.
That's okay. So
That
everything
feels
orange is anti-inflammatory. You heard it here first. We're now a health podcast. Anybody can do that now. Joe Rogan does it, so we can do it too. Yeah. Eat
it
more
feels like
orange
science.
things.
Feels like
Yeah.
science. Orange equals anti-inflammatory. Anyway, yams, she rubs it straight up on him is what I'm saying. She is deeply hitting on him basically immediately.
But I thought that, and so because you got me there, I'm gonna jump forward a little bit because I was super fucking confused later in the movie when Martel says to Falco after he takes his job back, he says, "She deserves better."
Okay,
About
what
the
in the
cheerleader.
actual fuck? What in the
And
actual
there's
fuck,
been
Marcel?
like,
You had
they
no
haven't even
involvement.
talked to each other the whole movie, right?
There's gotta
So
be a deleted scene.
exactly. So apparently, I don't know if this is for sure, but like when because I Googled it, I was that curious of just did I miss something? I don't even remember them being in a scene together. And apparently, this article from 2000 when this came out, it was a movie review and said specifically, we're thinking that they left some scenes on the cutting room floor because there should have been a subplot of
Yeah.
him being this girl's ex. And that is tying into what you're saying, which is maybe because of him, she no longer dates football players and
That's
especially not quarterbacks.
That is 100% my takeaway. I totally agree, which would
Yeah.
then mean that she had an affair with him because I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be married, which is a whole other. I think that's why it's cut, is what I'm saying. I think it's cut because it makes
Uh,
her look bad that she had an affair with the married guy. But I do assume that that's a subplot. But that whole scene could have happened without that portion of the conversation and been as just as impactful.
mhm.
But I think it then doesn't allow for him kind of standing her up, right? Because otherwise you don't quite understand why he would stand her up if you don't give him
Yeah.
the little nugget of insecurity of don't drag her down with you, da 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 da. Because he's proven himself, at least to this point, to like not be the guy who's gonna just not show up and be a dick about it or
Mhm.
whatever. But he stands her up on the date. And it is the one flaw that he shows the whole time. And I will
Mhm.
say also the one flaw that she also shows is that he shows up at the game mid-game after all this has happened, and she just is kind of cool with it. And like that's not it, like again, there's
Yeah.
a whole subplot happening here that either wasn't fleshed out in the movie or they just think it reconciles because she's just supposed to get it. She's supposed to get that, Martel came back and Falco was so upset and he just vanished for a hot minute because of that. And like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't really care. Like, great, you had a rough night. Like, you don't ditch me and say 0 words about it, you
If I
know?
were looking to my heart says it's just poor script writing or things being
Yeah,
cut
like poor
from the
writing, poor
script that
editing,
makes it
poor yeah.
incomplete. But if I wanted to excuse the purpose behind it, I guess I could say, well, if he thinks he's played his last game there and he's never going to be in the stadium again and see her again, and he wants to do that thing of just like, I'm going to break your heart so bad that you're never going to want to see me again or talk to me again. So
Mhm.
I'm going to stand you up. And like, that's him not wanting to, thinking she does deserve better and he's a piece of shit. Like, I could see how that might have been what they intended there. And then because he goes back to the team. But
Mhm.
yeah, it is silly that we've had this guy, like, couldn't he have just texted her and been like, we can't be together? Like, instead of
I
just
mean,
standing her up
listen,
for dinner? I
this
don't know.
is 2000, so, like, let's acknowledge the technology
Couldn't he have
limitations of
AOL
this
instant
time.
messaged her and
Right.
said,
Could he have
we're not
aimed
meant to be
her
together?
and then
Yeah.
put, like, an emo song lyric as his away message, and then it woulda all made sense. It woulda all made
Oh,
sense.
I'm trying
She
to
woulda
pick a
to
winner, but yeah,
she
that's
woulda totally gotten it. She woulda totally gotten it, you know?
that
But then
is
it would've
just
been
like an emo kid on AIM 2 to break a girl's heart, but then put up an emo song lyric themselves as if they're the ones that got hurt. That's
I was
Lemar
so
in the year 2000.
heartbroken.
Oh god. Yeah.
You're like, "Oh, the nostalgia of it all. It takes me back." I love it. But no, they're cute, it's sweet, whatever. But I don't love that for her, but I agree with you. I think it's just shitty editing, shitty writing, whatever.
Mhm.
But one of the things, this completely unrelated nugget, but well, not unrelated, but we skipped over this nugget that we just have to address, which is the team getting jailed for the bar fight. Like, that is one of the best scenes in the whole movie of they are just at their bar, like the bar, handling their shit, just minding their own business, having a drink. And you can fucking tell these multi-million-dollar players are unemployed because
They're all hanging out together.
all they have to do all day is just hang out together and show up everywhere that their
Yeah.
nemesis are. And it's so ridiculous. It's
Uh,
embarrassing. And they show up
and it's like
everywhere.
the NFL players have fucking families and shit
You
to
have families.
do.
You have shit
But
to
it's
do.
funny. I did laugh at that same thing of like they're just spending every day hanging out together. That's
Not
cool.
only
They're
are
best
they
friends.
not only are they hanging out, they're in parking lots, they're in bars, they're also tailgating the game that they're boycotting. Like, can we talk
Yeah.
about that they literally tailgate? And I'm like, you realize you're the biggest fans right now. You're in the parking lot. You can't even watch the game, and you are
Yeah.
tailgating in the parking lot. You're ridiculous. But yeah.
I love the bar fight. I love
Mhm.
you can't have a movie from like this between probably 10 to 15 years before this and 5 to 10 years after this. You couldn't have like a scene in a bar without having a bar fight of some kind. And I love that it has the stereotypical dragging the guy along the bar
Yes.
top. Like
I'm so glad you
you gotta
said that.
have it. Gotta have
I
it.
was totally gonna say I wasn't gonna say stereotypical, but I was gonna say that's my favorite moment of him just like I feel like it's because he's trying to mind his own business and then he gets interrupted with his Hennessy and he's like, "Hey, I
Mhm.
was having a drink and now I'm gonna fuck you up." And yeah, he just drags him across the bar. It's so glorious. But I love that it's all up against, obviously, they're having this conflict and they didn't start it and these people are pieces of shit. But then
Mhm.
they get jailed. They get sent to jail and all these wealthy players get let off the hook. But it's such a
There's a
bonding
metaphor
experience.
there. Some kind of social I don't know what it is, but
There's some
that's
kind of comment being made. I'm not sure, but it's definitely the comment is, I think, team bonding. I think it's team bonding because
that's that's what brings them together.
that's what brings them together. They all end up in this cell together, and it's an important bonding moment for them, and they all dance IRL to "I Will Survive" by our dear Gloria Gaynor, and it is one of the best scenes. Like,
It's beautiful.
it's a beautiful scene. Independent of this movie, it is just in movie scenes, a beautiful, fun scene that bonds these guys. And even Keanu Reeves' character, who I think is like the more chill and all of that, but maybe is a little bit like Keanu. I don't know.
Mhm.
You can tell it like takes him a minute to get into it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he kind of has to be coerced. And that's when you know you've got it, right? Like when the wallflower is like, fuck it, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna dance this
Mhm.
song and I'm just dance my little heart out. That's how you know that the real bonding is happening, the real moment is happening, and he joins in, and that was it. Like,
Yeah.
it's adorable.
Sometimes leaders gotta lead and sometimes leaders gotta follow.
Yes,
That's just me
yes.
trying to give inspirational quotes like Gene Hackman in our podcast, so that might be something he might say if he were here. I also like, and I noticed this time, was they're doing the electric slide. Like, it's a pretty
Yeah.
easy 4-step dance that they're doing in this
Is
scene,
it
and then they do
easy
it in
for grown-ass men to do the
well, I was
electric
gonna
slide?
say, because they do it in this scene, and they do it at the very end of the film, and, like, as the
And
credits are coming up,
they struggle.
and Rhys Ifans from Wales cannot seem to get this. He's looking at the other players to see what he's supposed to do next, and I'm like, "How do you" but and then I was like, "Oh, he grew up in Wales. Maybe they didn't do the electric slide there."
He's also not the only one. Like, so, if you especially the last one, like the jail scene, I feel
Mhm.
like they worked on a little bit better, but the end zone scene, I don't know if it was shot first or if the vibes were different, I don't know, but they were so much worse in the end zone celebration than they were in the jail cell. They were so off of each other. But I think it adds something cute to the whole vibe of
Yeah, it
like,
makes it feel more authentic, I suppose, of a moment. Because if it looked perfectly
yeah.
choreographed like Bring It On, then I'm just gonna let's just watch Bring It On again, because that's like my 3rd Bring It On reference this episode.
What we have learned from this pod is that you love that movie. Like, you love that movie. We didn't realize. We're all
That's
learning together. But I love the other thing I think is like we have to spend a minute on Jimmy McGinty as a whole. He has some great quotes. He's
yeah.
that like wholesome coach vibes. But I love when he sends Bateman on the hunt for the ball,
Bring me the ball.
and
Yeah.
he's like, "Give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball." And they get so hyped up together and like it's so peak sports. I love it. And he goes, he gets it, he comes back, but like he runs at him and he like runs out on the field and he goes, "I hope he doesn't kill somebody." And he just says it with like kind of sincerity of
Yeah.
like, I might have just sent him out to murder someone. I don't 100% know. And then he also has this other great quote about don't do anything great in sports if you can't handle the congratulations. And
Hmm.
I love that about him. He's like, because they were talking about how when you're super successful, you have this great moment, people pounce on you or lose their minds on you or what have you. And I thought this just came full circle in this movie of people are getting hurt. They're breaking shit. They're getting, water thrown on them. They're like having these great big moments, but the congratulations are intense. And I love him as a coach. He's such a good contribution to the whole thing.
Yeah, he's fun. I love how he just always seems to have his players' backs. As I said, I love his heart to hearts with Falco, and yeah, that interaction is very funny. I was going to point out when you were talking about that. I'm not a big like as I'm researching for our episodes, I'll look up little trivia and fun facts about the movie and stuff. I'm not big on looking up goofs and things that were wrong, or because
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
not
like
big
that
on
either.
spotting those. But I did laugh when I was just looking through it out of curiosity. I'm not going to call any of them out, but apparently there's 3 to 4 different scenes in this of a play happening on the field and then it cutting to the sidelines and the player who's making the play on the field is like applauding for
He's
themselves.
on this.
So I'm like, that's pretty funny. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
almost feels intentional if it's that frequent,
But yeah, it might be,
Just
might be.
wonder.
So yeah, not a big blooper guy, but I thought that was funny that multiple times the person who's making the play is like cheering for themselves on the sideline.
I definitely don't recon bloopers, like, I don't look them up, but
Yeah.
I definitely take a lot of pride in finding them because I
Yeah.
will which, like, in this one, again, the passes from Falco, like, there is a difference between a right-handed throw and a left-handed throw, like, the spin is literally different, and so there are multiple passes that he throws that are right-handed passes, and he's a lefty quarterback, so
I think you
tho
just mansplained spirals to me, but I actually was learning something. I was like, oh, I never thought about it that the ball would spin a different direction. So thank you, Mackenzie.
I think I've peaked as a woman if I just mansplained football
I
to a
don't think you
man.
should say that. I don't think that's what women should aim to be. Like I just peaked as a woman because I did something men do. That's a bad lesson.
Because I mansplained a sport to a man. That
Fair.
feels
Okay.
fucking incredible, and I'm proud of myself. So thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, all that to say, like there's so many great things, but I think the end of this movie is one of the things I really do like is that they play their little hearts out and they have this so the whole goal, if you don't remember from the film, is that they have to win 3 out of 4 games to make the playoffs on behalf of the
Mhm.
Sentinels, right? That's the
Yeah.
shtick. And they lost their first game, but by the skin of their teeth, honestly. They actually showed
Came
up
down to the
midway.
last play. Yeah.
Yeah, down the last play. And they come in as replacement players. Like, this is unheard of. Like, I'm a Patriots fan, and if anybody's paid attention to the Patriots season this year, you know that it was fucking brutal, and not a one of them was a replacement player. So it is incredibly impressive that 3 out of 4 games they won. They won
Mhm.
is replacement players in a short period of time. You've bonded as a team. You've memorized the playbook. You have figured out the calls. You have worked with new coaches, and you have won 3 out of 4 games. That is impressive. Um, but I think what's super cool about this is they go into this last game just again to Jimmy McGinty's quote throughout the movie of like with all the heart of
Mhm.
like they're playing like it's their last game and like their life depends on it because that's it.
Yep. It
This
is
truly
no
is.
tomorrow.
And like how different would that make it for other players and other coaches and other teams if you really did know that it was your last game? And I love thinking about that in this context because I do think this really truly contributes to how well they play and how they end up winning and getting the Sentinels to the playoffs, even though they don't get to play in that game. And I think
Yeah.
that's super cool.
Yeah, you got my wheels turning on like all these different semi-related sports quotes, mostly from movies and whatnot. But I like that one. There was the scene in this where they put the stickum on Orlando
Oh my
Jones'
God, Clifford.
hands,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just to like help him catch the ball. And I'm like, well, that's pulled directly out of Little Giants. But
Yeah.
there's another good quote in there of him talking about like Rick Moranis's character talking about like you might beat us 99 times out of 100. We just have to win this one. Like that's what's like if we
Yeah.
beat you once, that tarnishes your entire record. So I think the one that you just said about this movie is fairly like that no tomorrow. Like we're literally just playing for today. beat you guys, then that's awesome because if we lose, it doesn't matter. If we win, it doesn't matter. But yeah.
Okay, but the quote I thought you were gonna mention was I look like I just jacked off an elephant.
I thought you were referencing Little Giants at first, and I was like, what the fuck movie did you watch? Good
Definitely
God.
where I thought you were going with that, I'm not gonna lie. But speaking of the best quotes, I love when they get in the huddle though, and Falco's like, listen, this is it. This is the fucking game. I would love to say something inspirational and great, but like that's not our vibe. Let's just admit it. It's not our vibe. And so he says, pain heals, chicks dig scars, and glory lasts forever. And I
Hell
fucking
yeah.
love that. I want that to be my toast for the rest of my life. Like I think that's just so fun and silly, and it's so great. It's so great for this. And it just contributes to they're playing like there's no tomorrow vibes. And it's just like given zero fucks. And I love that for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the way that this, again, we talked about how the film plays out, how the story just keeps chugging along. It doesn't let up. I mean, we didn't have time today to spend on every little thing of the team really like having that first game where they hate each other and then they bond, as we said, and then they play a couple more games before we get to sort of this conclusion. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in here. It keeps moving. I did want to shout out from what you said about, this doesn't typically happen. So what this was based on, as we said it to start, is the 1986 Redskins. And I'm going to apologize now because I hate that name just as much as everybody else. I'm
Everybody hates
saying
it. It's the worst.
it was the name at the time. So again, apologies if you
The
don't like
name.
that term. But their replacement players went 3-0 in the games they had to fill in, which helped the Redskins to make the playoffs, similar to this movie. And then they won the Super Bowl that year. And the owners refused to recognize the replacement players as part of that team. So they never got Super Bowl rings despite helping them to win 3 games. It wasn't until it has a happy ending, 2018, that they were actually given Super Bowl rings, which is kind of cool. It's 18 years after this movie even came out, but it's nice to know that they eventually got their Super Bowl rings.
And they fucking deserved it because, like, you don't uphold that record on their behalf, on the behalf of the team, then they don't get to go to the playoffs. They don't get to the Super Bowl. Like, that is just such a big thing. And I get it and I don't get it. You know what I mean? Why they would try to withhold that. But yeah, I'm so glad to hear that they got it. I didn't know that. That's an awesome factoid. But also, sidebar, can we talk about how their new name sucks? Like, I hated the Redskins.
The
Obviously, let's
Commanders.
change it. But the Commanders, like, ugh. Do better.
I actually was, even though I hate, what was the owner's name? I know he just got ousted. Dan Snyder, I want to say, might have been his name.
I think it's Snyder, yeah.
Yeah, and he was a piece of garbage, but I did love the spitefulness of just saying, well, we're just going to call our team the Washington Football Team for like 2 or 3 years. I was, as somebody who is equally spiteful and sort of like, well, I don't like doing things people tell me to do. I thought that was a pretty baller move, but yeah, the Commanders, I don't know.
No, it's pretty terrible. I'm not impressed at all. But anyway, the Sentinels, however, sure, I can get behind that. And I'm very happy that they made the playoffs with the replacements. I'm not happy that Martell gets to just come back, do his typical shit. I do love that they carried him out of the locker room and told him to fuck off. So that's super satisfying. And then it's super satisfying that, Falco like gets the girl at the end, and at least there's that. But I have one bone to pick. Because McGinty tells him at the beginning, hey, you're still young. You're a great quarterback. And when the man that this is an amalgamation of quotes, so bear with me. But when the man that you are versus the man that you want to be come together, you're going to be a great football player.
You jerk off an elephant. You said it was an amalgamation of quotes.
Obviously, then the next phase of that is that you jerk off an elephant and you win a Super Bowl. All right. So you assume he's going to make this great progress, whatever. But this is very much treated as like the end of his story.
A swan song. Yeah.
Very much a swan song. And I was like, listen, he just proved that in 4 games, he can make a hack job of a football team turn into a winning team. Like, this guy not getting another shot in the pros is kind of shocking to me. And I know that that's not the point of this movie, but I just feel like he dangled this carrot. And then at the end, we forget about this carrot entirely. And it becomes, to your point, like a swan song. And I think it should be like, there should be a modicum of hope for his career because clearly this is something that he, one, is good at, two, he's overcome a lot to like learn some things, but three, he loves. He
Yeah.
was so upset when Martell crossed the picket line. You could tell he was trying to
Mhm.
be cool about it. But he loves it and he wants to do this, and he really showed up, and I don't like the idea that he doesn't really truly get another chance.
Well, you better get used to it because the rest of his days playing football are gonna be underwater with a metal thing wearing a diving suit, so that's what we've established at the beginning of the movie.
At least it's adorable. I mean, at least it's fun to watch. I'll watch it. That's fine. Just somebody get him an oxygen tank, please.
I I have one question about the last game that I was perplexed by this plot point. The leg is up to kick a field goal that I think is gonna
Oh
tie the
my
game,
god. You know what
and
you're gonna say. Go, go, go.
the mobsters are standing in the stands. They bought tickets to see him play, but just to sort of intimidate him and look at him because they're gonna steal his bar. So he says, "I can't do it." So I'm guessing he's planning to, like, miss the kick on purpose,
No,
but
I
sorry,
don't
go
think
ahead.
so. No, no, no. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think I had the same exact thought process, but I think I figured it out. And you tell me if I'm wrong. But I think it's because they think he's gonna choke, like, they don't think he's gonna win, they think he's gonna bomb and not win, he's not gonna have money to pay them, and so then they will get his bar, and they are trying to psych him out. I think they're trying to make him miss, they're trying to make him freak out and, like, miss the kick so that they can get the bar and make money off the bar.
So that's why he says to Shane, "I can't do it," like, they're gonna take
He's
my
saying, "I
bar?
can't do it, they're gonna take my bar because, like, if I miss, they're gonna take my bar." I don't think he has a lot of confidence at that moment, he's been so psyched out for a hot
Oh,
minute.
so you think he's telling Shane, "I think I'm gonna miss it because I'm so scared
Because
right
I'm
now."
so
I
scared
thought
right
he
now.
was saying, "I'm sorry, I can't kick this because they're gonna if I kick it and make it, they're gonna,
No,
like, steal it." But then I was like, "Well, they win the game anyway, so if they had money riding on the game, he's still
no.
dead or whatever," but okay.
I think it's because they're not riding on the game. They're not betting anything specifically. They're just like, "You're not gonna have money, like, you're not gonna win this, and so we're gonna get your bar, and we want that to happen. We wanna get your bar, we want this income, we want you to fuck off."
Mm,
I think that's this because it's just how stressed he is, right? And then, of course, Shane takes the decision and the responsibility out of his hands
yeah, yeah.
and is like, "I got you." I think that's just my read on it. I don't know if that's right,
That's
but
well, no, I appreciate I mean, it's the same as what I said earlier about the situation with him standing up the cheerleader. It's like I can find a way to explain away what it might be happening. It doesn't make the original thing any less confusing, but I like that you have a way for me to sort of dig my brain out of this
make
hole.
sense of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
We gotta just process what we can. But
Yeah.
I think also it ends on this super high note of they win. His bar in theory is not taken away. These guys are not necessarily um it's not a fairy tale, but they're all really happy with what they have
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And it gives me strong I wanna know what you think about this. I had such a throwback to, like, John Hughes at the end of this film, this very, like, end of Breakfast Club vibes of, like, the narration, and then literally, I was thinking that before this even happened, and then Hackman does the fist motion at the very end, and
Yeah. That's a good
it's
call.
not as big as Breakfast Club, like, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, it's not as overt as that, but it's a little, like, a little fist up, and I'm like, "Ah, this is such an '80s John Hughes moment," and it
Yeah.
vibes with the director who's done, a commensurate film of, like, Pretty in Pink and all these
Yep.
things.
Yep.
So I was like, "Oh my god," that kind of is, like, the energy I was getting for it, and I was like, "I think that's why I like this so much." It's just got this wholesome vibe to it.
I could see that for sure, and it makes sense as you said with their career track. The only other thing that I really wanted to call out, the one of my favorite like not scenes, but yeah, I guess scenes. I really like we talked earlier about how cool it was for them to get Madden and Summerall for this, and I thought the scene where Falco and Annabelle are having their first kiss, I thought it was very clever to have the football
Yes, the play
commentary that
calls.
goes along with what's happening in the live game when they cut to that. I thought that was pretty damn clever, you know?
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I totally forgot about that, but I totally agree. I think it's such a fun scene, and it's like, you can imagine that that is what is playing in his head. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, something like that, or in hers too, because she's a football fan, right? Like, both of them could be having this exact moment, and maybe that's why they're a perfect match for each other. I don't
Yeah,
know, but it was super cute. I
yeah.
agree.
that line of, and Falco's been shut down by this defense before. Like, because she doesn't date football players, guys. She doesn't.
He's been so respectful of that. But you know what he did though? He just towed the line. He towed the line and he like went and he did the cheek kiss for a hot second. He was like, did she freak out? Is she upset? She did not freak out. That is a green light for sure. So for him, he felt like it was a green light and he did great, I thought. But yeah, I loved that. Anyway, all that to say, that's basically where this movie ends. They get them into the playoffs. You know, Shane gets the girl, which is great. These guys, in theory, all go back to their lives. Who knows? It's not clear if Jimmy McGinty is going to be kept on or not. But, you know, this great moment has happened. And I think it just ends. It takes you out on such a high. You definitely have questions. You hope that it goes well. But generally, it goes out on such a high that's really fun. And yeah, I think it's a good flick. I think it's a fun football flick for sure.
Completely. Nothing has changed since the beginning when I talked about my thoughts on this movie. I actually think my personal score of it has probably gone up a little bit. Like, I would say, just talking about it and laughing, thinking about the things that make me laugh in this and why it is just such a good time. I'm probably going to give it like a 7.5. I think it's a really enjoyable film. I don't think it's perfect. I think it's a little not aging great, and there's some moments where I'm just like, roll my eyes a little bit, but it's just a fun movie to watch. Sometimes you just got to turn your brain off and enjoy something for 2 hours. So 7.5.
I totally agree. I'm going to go 7.5 as well. And I kind of used your scale on this, which, as you know, I'm very much a gut checker, but you also like the rewatchability of something. And I feel like I can rewatch this in a lot of situations and a lot of contexts and just still like have a good time. And again, like you said, I watch a lot of heavy shit, as we know, and just having like a nice, reliable, fun flick to have a good time with and not be heavy, but still it's a fun, enjoyable experience. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go a solid 7.5.
For the 95 times this episode that we've said, oh man, this hasn't aged well, I thought sitting down to watch this for the first time in probably 10 years that it was going to be bad. I was like, there's no way this is as good as I remember it being back then.
Okay.
But yeah, shocked at
So
just
it
this
won
is
you
still a lot of
over,
fun.
really.
Yeah.
Like if you went in with such low expectations, I think that's even more of a testament.
I thought I would like throw it on in the background and sort of take notes, but like be multitasking. And I found myself glued because it is a very fun movie. And I think we didn't even touch on the fact that the football that's on film in this is pretty accurate to the real game, and it's fun to watch. Yeah.
And they also like they used a few players that were stunt players, but like overall it was a lot of the same people who ran the plays. And for that, it's pretty impressive how like if you watch the playback, it looks very similar to a real game in a lot of situations. So yeah, I thought it was really cool. But anyway, we have talked about The Replacements an incredible amount of time. I'm really
actually went this long on the fucking Replacements.
I'm really impressed by it. But I think that's a testament to you should go watch it if you've never seen it. It's a good watch. But so what we're gonna do for next week is we're gonna do a wild card entry. So
we thought about doing just a straight up basketball movie because it is March Madness, but the whole point of the past 3 weeks has been fuck that tournament. We own the rights now. So we'll be surprising you guys. We're gonna be running some stuff on our socials, but yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be a healthy mix. We're going to have some like ice skating entries, some poker, some, racing, Formula One, all the good stuff. So it'll be a good time either way. Our last entry will be another sport. Don't you fret. But basically, stay tuned. And for now, go have a drink and watch a thing. Cheers.
Cheers.